All right, so let's move on to the next one. This is a question from Reddit that I find really interesting, and I wanted to hear your take on it. But basically, the gist of the argument is any other service you pay for, you get, right? You they estimate everything they're doing, and they say it's going to cost me, for instance, a lawyer when they're preparing for a case. Um, they will have to like have investigators. So they'll charge them per hour. Everything is detailed and documented. This is why everything costs this much. But for realtors, regardless of how hard they work or how easy it is, it's always a percentage.
Right.
And the argument here is, and I'll read it. It says, "Can any agent explain to me why we pay a percentage of our home sales price? Yes, I am biased because I believe the model of paying 6% on your home's value for the work agents do is ridiculous. Combined with the extremely minimal training required in most states to become a license. But I genuinely would like to hear some opinions on why anyone thinks this makes sense to pay this way. House A is $500,000, perfect neighborhood, perfect schools, perfect house layout that everyone wants. It is going to take literally no work and will have multiple offers the first weekend. On the other hand, you have House B. That's kind of like that Redfin one, right? 250K, weird area, strange layout, outdated, going to be a hard sell. Will probably sit for a long time, probably end up doing multiple open houses. Can anyone explain why the agent of House A gets paid 2 times the amount of the agent for House B when they had to do significantly less work?" So, Andrew, why does percentage make sense for realtors? Is there anything that maybe this individual is missing? Why they're maybe what they're missing?
Hmm.
Kind of like explain why you get a percentage instead of why you get instead of a flat fee. And I think for me as a consumer, I think about a flat fee, and I'm just going to answer what I think is an appropriate answer. I was there was a realtor that took me out to dinner. I didn't really actually like this realtor though. I didn't go do business with him. He paid
Oh,
for right?
yeah.
And so he lost money on me. And that's just one thing, but there's a lot of realtors who'll go do groundwork and then the person doesn't end up buying anything from them. Maybe not now, maybe not ever. And so all that time they just spent was wasted. Now, I would say just
Right.
an outside view, that's
That
one
happens a lot.
example of why a percentage I think is at least appropriate. But you go ahead.
So the person that's asking that question, it's a valid question. I mean, it's something that's been discussed and talked about, where, for example, sellers may not be paying buyer commission anymore. They still have the option, but sometime later this year, they may not have to. Now, who's going to pay it? The buyer themselves. In practice, it's normally been the seller. So now the buyer might have to pay, but um, that's why I think this is conversation has popped up on Reddit, which is an interesting question, but. One thing this person is doing is assuming just because a house looks good, is in a good location, there's a lot more behind it in terms of that particular property trying to sell it.
Mhm.
And she or he even mentioned that it's probably going to get multiple offers, a lot of offers, because the demand's going to be high because it's a great location and it's probably a good house. So you got to find an agent that has the experience to beat out those other offers, because it doesn't always come down to money. It comes down to terms, it comes out to a ton of things where you build rapport with the listing agent and you make them comfortable and you present your buyer in the best light possible. Besides the number, it doesn't always come down to the number or the price. And then another thing is, it could have taken that agent, the buyer's agent, and for this particular scenario, it could have taken that buyer's agent months, if not years, to get to that particular home. So there's so much hours that an agent puts just behind one person, that the accumulation of hours it takes is so much that that's why it requires, or in practice it shows the percentage of that purchase price. For example, I
And
just did a
go ahead.
lease. Yeah, I just did a lease. I was adding up all the hours because that's what I'm starting to do now, adding up all the hours. I spent about 135 hours on this person to get them into a lease. And I think that took about like 3.5 months, right? For this
Mhm.
particular one person, I made less than $3,000 on 130 hours. That's about $22 an hour. And I have a lot of experience. I've been doing this 9 years. I use a lot of data. I've driven around with this person many miles. I've taken them out to lunch, like, that agent did with you. I've
Hmm.
spent quite a bit of money and a lot of time, and I only got paid less than 2 grand or 3 grand. So that kind of tells you, that's why an agent gets a percentage of whatever the sale price is or the lease price is. And that's just one of many examples that I can give you.
So, you know, I've actually had experiences with real. We've talked about this on the podcast before, where when we first had Sway on for the first time, and he was talking about how he's a salesman, right?
Yeah,
And I
he's a great
respect it
one
because
too.
it's a position that I would never really feel comfortable with unless I truly believe in the product, which I think he does, and I know you do too. It's very easy to represent real estate in the sense that it's an asset for the most part that's going to keep going up as long as you're not shady, and you're not as long as you represent your client, you're going to feel you'll be able to sleep at night, and make good money given uh, and hard work and in some cases luck.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that the way you built your network was door to door, knocking on doors.
Literally.
So
Yep.
all those hours um, aren't factored into the hours you just calculated. So to me, it makes sense. The model that's currently set up, it's not no system is perfect, but it seems to be one that's working.
Yeah, because at the same time, like, if just to add to it, put some more, weight behind it, is
Hmm.
that many times you could help a buyer yeah, let's just stick to buyers for now. You could
Yeah.
help a buyer for, like, I spent 2 years on a buyer. Okay.
Hmm.
Like, literally, this is a recent thing that happened. I spent 2 years of my time. I didn't count the hours then, unfortunately. I just started doing this now. I spent 2 years on them driving around. I know I put thousands of miles in it because they were
Hmm.
going from LA, from Woodland Hills to Dana Point, and I would, like a madman. Anyways, she didn't end up buying.
Hmm.
And that was obviously, that hurt, dude. And
Wow.
I know. And that happens. It does happen. And I spent many hours door knocking just to get to this person too, because I was planning to sell at her house and also helping her buy. And a lot of times, salespeople also, what's really good about salespeople, besides them being an expert in their craft, is they help you feel confident in making that decision, whether it's to buy something, sell something, or to wait. A lot of people need that extra push to actually do something, because most people, they sit on their hands. Majority of people, same thing with me outside of my own, practice of real estate. A lot of people like to feel comfortable and not make that first move. A
Hmm.
salesperson that's really good helps you make that first move. And then when you look back in time, from the time you made that move, you're very grateful that you invested. And that's the whole goal of a realtor and a salesperson of any, for that matter, for the most part anyways.
Right. Right. Good answer. Good answer.